Thank you very much, Director, and thank you, dear colleagues, friends joining us today. I know that it's a very difficult agenda for many of you, and particularly those who are also covering bilateral relations, so I'm really grateful for having you with us today and taking part in this very important event. I see here some former chairs of the Hague Code who are committed to further foster this very noble cause. Mr. Chair, Ambassador Cho, Director Grant, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for attending this commemorative event organized by the European Union in the context of the EU Council decision in support of the Hague Code of Conduct. The Council decision to take specific joint action to support the HCoC was endorsed a few months ago, and it takes over where the last Council's joint action of 2008 on HCoC left. This new EU effort will continue for a couple of years. I would like to warmly thank the current chair of the Hague Code, Ambassador Cho, for his support to this event and future activities that will take place during his presidency. We look forward to continuing this fruitful cooperation for the next months and with the incoming Hague Code chair, Japan, for the next year. I would also like to thank the Hague Code of Conduct immediate central contact within the Austrian Ministry of Foreign Affairs for their support in the past and current EU joint action, as well as thank the implementing agency, the Foundation of Strategic Research, for the excellent preparations of this event. Thank you very much, Director. This commemorative event is a concrete measure to strengthen and universalize the Hague Code of Conduct. We are looking forward to your active participation in the discussions, and we are sure we will all learn a lot in the process, both from subscribing and non-subscribing states and the academia. In fact, working on effective multilateralism and on cooperation with partners implies that we have to be open for discussions with others. Today, you have been invited to talk about the challenges and opportunities the HCoC is facing 10 years after its adoption. The EU adopted a new Council decision in support of the Hague Code in the framework of its security strategy, as well as its strategy against the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction and their means of delivery, which are both based on effective multilateralism, international cooperation, and transparency. The European security, also adopted 10 years ago, recognized that the spread of missile technology adds a further element of instability and could put Europe at increasing risk. The strategy against the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction and their means of delivery explicitly states, and I would like to quote, "Proliferation of means of delivery related to weapons of mass destruction, development by several countries of concern of ballistic programs, of autonomous capacity in the production of medium and long-range missiles, as well as cruise missiles and UAV, are a growing cause of concern." End of quote. Therefore, the strategy commits the EU to actively pursue implementation and universalization of the Hague Code of Conduct. As the HCoC is the only multilateral instrument on non-proliferation, arms control, and transparency in the field of ballistic missiles, the EU still believes it is paramount to make it successful and efficient. The EU has supported the code from the very beginning, and at senior level we have adopted to undertake an initiative in order to make our support more tangible and more effective, and to try and increase the reach and efficiency of the code. When the code was conceived a little more than 10 years ago, its creators had two objectives in mind. First, the development of new and more efficient means of delivery for weapons of mass destruction demanded the creation of an instrument that would try to bring together countries in a collective effort to curb that phenomenon. Second, to ensure that the code would not infringe on every country's right to develop and possess space launch vehicles. 10 years after its creation, the HCoC gains more and more recognition. its successes are important. Here we can recall the subscription of more than 130, actually 134 countries to the Code, and the increasingly effective implementation of its measures. We have also been witnessing the clear signs of closer relations between the Code and the UN system. Good examples of those closer links between the HCoC and the UN are the resolutions adopted by the General Assembly in previous years and supported by the vast majority of the UN member states. The last one being adopted December 2012. But a lot remains to be done, especially in the light of recent worrisome ballistic missile launches in East Asia and the Middle East. Ladies and gentlemen, the EU Council decision adopted a few months ago foresees a number of projects in support of the HCoC and pursues three main goals: making the Code global, universalization; making the Code stronger, enhancement; making the Code work better in practice, implementation at national level. First, we encourage more countries to subscribe to the Code. Universalization is not a goal by itself, but makes it possible to raise global awareness of the potential risks associated with missiles as a preferred mean of delivery for WMDs. Therefore, we will be engaging with countries that are not subscribing states yet, and we will be inviting them to our conferences and events. It is important to encourage even states without ballistic missile programs, or states that have other priorities, such as poverty reduction and development, to join the HCoC. By joining the HCoC, states can demonstrate their commitment to non-proliferation and effective multilateralism, and also benefit from the transparency measures of the Code. But it is also important to insist on states with programs of ballistic missiles joining and recognizing that the Code is not meant to forbid the existence of such weapons, but to build more transparency about their possession, thus creating more stability and security for all. Second, we will organize workshops to discuss the issues which need to be addressed in order to ensure the credibility and the effectiveness of the Code. In our view, the workshops should allow for in-depth, informal discussions between subscribing and non-subscribing states and academic experts. In the framework of the past EU joint action, this effort has proved valuable. We hope that the conclusions of these debates will serve as inputs for side events and official meetings in order to strengthen the Code and maybe propose solutions to make the Code more credible and more effective. Thirdly, the EU is engaged in supporting the Code through pragmatic efforts to facilitate and enhance its implementation at the national level. The HCoC website, created in the framework of our past joint action, is a tangible example. Still, more work is needed towards the creation of the best conditions for the implementation of the Code. Last but not least, it seems necessary a decade after the Code was signed to organize an event that will allow in-depth discussion on the successes and challenges of the HCoC, as well as to debate its perspectives. We will call on the academic community to produce food for thought papers in order to fuel the debate and make it more useful to try and meet our objectives. The event today has been organized in this perspective. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, a busy agenda and difficult objectives remain ahead of us. The project will only succeed if you all contribute. We look forward to your thoughts and comments in the discussion today and to your participation in our future events. I would like to thank you for your attention, and I would like also to inform you that our delegation decided to go on Twitter, and our first Twitter message will be on the Hague Code of Conduct. Thank you very much.
Ambassador, thank you very much. Let me pass the floor to Ambassador Cho, who's been a dedicated chair to the Code, and with whom we've been very fortunate to work in this project very, very closely. Ambassador, thank you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. As the current chair of HCoC, I would like to begin by congratulating the European Union and Fondation pour la Recherche Stratégique for organizing this very auspicious excuse me, event to commemorate the 10th anniversary of HCoC. I believe this conference clearly underlines the commitment of the EU, the Nobel Peace Prize winner of last year, to building a lasting peace by promoting security within and beyond Europe. Since its launch in 2002, the HCoC has achieved much in the field of non-proliferation, and we have witnessed a great deal of progress throughout the past decade. However, we must not be complacent about what we have achieved in the years of hard work. As the only instrument that addresses the motivation of the states to pursue ballistic missile capabilities, the code still needs to be refined and further developed. So what can be done? Many things come to my mind, but I believe there are at least two things in achieving this objective. First, it is the expansion of the member states or subscribing states. The code should continue to reach out to the states remaining outside the code. The number of subscribing states has increased to 134 from 96. And I should give credit to my predecessors and to all those who have worked for it, for this achievement. However, I found it remarkable that 162 UN member states supported the General Assembly resolution last December. This means that there are still many countries who are willing to join the code. I'm confident that the more united we stand against ballistic missile proliferation, the more effective our efforts against the threat of WMDs and their delivery systems will be. Secondly, it is the improvement of our housekeeping. The code must continue reviews and amend processes and procedures with a view to promoting efficiency. I appreciate the work of the Austrian government that has done in this regard many good things as executive secretariat. For instance, the electronic immediate control central contact, that is EICC, has greatly facilitated communications among subscribing states. Here I call on the Austrian government once again to continue this effort to respond to other subscribing states' requests and questions. But there should be many more things we can do for the improvement of this code. But I hope we can achieve this internal and external objectives by designing a roadmap, which will be more strategic. How can we do it? By having frank discussions among the experts and those who are related to these activities, and also a very provocative brainstorming discussion as we are going to have this morning. So in this sense, I believe the workshop today is a very meaningful process for the development of HCoC. And when we find it worthwhile in the discussions afterwards, we might ask the EU and the Fondation to continue to do so. So once again, I sincerely wish this conference a fruitful outcome, as I firmly believe, and as I said, that these deliberations will lay the groundwork for future discussions, including the upcoming May meeting in May. I forgot the date, but in this May. Well, thank you very much.
Ambassador, thank you very much. I will, in these opening remarks, I will not go into a lot of substance because we're already running a little behind schedule. Let me just highlight a few points in this projects we're conducting on behalf of the EU. For those of you who haven't read the Council decision, and this is perfectly understandable because this is always the text is with you, but it is readable, but it's still EU language. Let me highlight a few points on what we do. We will be doing a series of activities, and in the next couple of years, of course, in very close cooperation with the chairs, both the Republic of Korea and then Japan, but with the EU member states, but also with all subscribing states and the Executive Secretariat. Those events will be of very different nature. Some of them will take place in Vienna, Geneva, or New York, and will be opportunities to engage the wider community of space and disarmament experts. Some of them will be more regionally focused. We intend to, we have planned to organize smaller workshops in Asia, in Latin America, to engage especially non-subscribing states in a substantive dialogue. We will also continue work on the EICC to assist the Austrian government in improving this when and if possible. And we will continue to work also on more substantive issues by engaging the community of space launch and others. So this will be an ongoing effort, so you will see, I'm afraid, more of us, including in Vienna. The principles of this effort undertaken by the EU on the code is I would say, there are 2 points I would like to highlight. The first one is the notion of engagement. This is not an EU-centric effort. This is really very much open to non-EU countries, and as many of you have accepted our invitation in that sense, it does demonstrate the logic behind it. It is also open to non-subscribing states. And this is, I think, an important endeavor, as this is very much a Track 2 event and Track 2 effort. The logic is really to outreach to non-subscribing states and engage into a dialogue, including not only a dialogue about the virtues of them joining the code, but also a dialogue on the code itself and what are its limits and shortcomings from the perspective of non-subscribing states, and this is an important point. We also intend to work on substance without complacency, and as you've seen today in the program, we will not only celebrate the success of the code, but also look into its future, its limits, its shortcomings, the points that need enhanced implementation, and so on. If you allow me a quick policy remark, I must say that I know that many of you have been involved in the early days of the code, in the drafting of the code, in the launching of the code 10 years ago. I must say that what seems to me extraordinarily important is how relevant the code is 10 years afterwards. And the reasons behind the code are still today very much important. If I look at what started the negotiation, and let me be here maybe a little undiplomatic as an academic, what prompted the effort to work on ballistic missile proliferation was the North Korean test of 1998. And 10 years afterwards, we see that happening again. So this is one challenge that hasn't been resolved. Quite the contrary, we see ballistic missile programs taking place not only in North Korea, but in several other regions, and in some cases with no clear security-related or space-related projects. We also see that ballistic missile use is happening, and we've seen that recently in Syria. So the missile issue is not an issue that is of a sort of theoretical. This is something that is a direct and serious issue for regional and international security. And in that context, the code was and remains the sole instrument in addressing these challenges. It is not perfect, it is not universal, it is not comprehensive, but it is, however, the only and most important tool. And this is one of the reasons, and one of its main success has to do with its I wouldn't say universalization, but the fact that 134 countries, including countries which have no direct interest in space launch or missiles, have decided to subscribe to it and to help building this norm around the issue of missiles. It is offering on a non-discriminatory basis a series of transparency and confidence-building measures, allowing access to space for peaceful use to take place, and offering to all subscribing states a certain degree of predictability in missiles-related activities, which is a very important tool. So in that context, we very strongly believe that it is a major instrument, and that the ongoing work on the code and the ongoing discussion of the code is still extremely relevant. This is not an instrument of the last century. This is an instrument of this current century, and we certainly are very eager to continue discussion on that.